Welcome back to our conversation with the Congresswoman from the 3rd Congressional District, native of Lowell, Lori Trahan. Congresswoman, after watching parts of last Wednesday's debate in the House over censuring a Republican representative for posting anime images online of him killing Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and attacking President Biden, it seems to me the level of personal animosity between substantial elements, if not all elements, of both parties is so high that it's irreparable. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, look, Paul Gosar has shown no remorse. His decision to post a video depicting the violent assault of Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and then brandishing weapons toward the President of the United States, it was despicable. So, of course, I joined my colleagues in voting to censure him because violence and threats of violence, they have no place in our political discourse. And it certainly doesn't have a place in our Capitol. I mean, this is the place where people look up to for, their aspirations. And, that was, it's ridiculous that only 2 of my Republican colleagues had the spine to stand with us in condemning these actions. And frankly, it's unconscionable to think that while we're passing these pieces of legislation to help, American families, to make sure that, we're alleviating this inflationary pressure and we're getting folks back to work, that we have to deal with another radical behavior from Paul Gosar and his party's inability to condemn those actions. I mean, it shows you the difference right now between who's wanting to govern in this moment and who is not.
Well, the Republicans during this debate were saying, well, if and when we retake the House next year, it'll be your members who are going to be called out for things they might say and stripped of their committee assignments. You and I talked about this same issue last January, right after the riot at the Capitol. And you said, if I recall correctly, well, this is tough, it's going to be hard, but we'll still find ways to work in a bipartisan way. Here we are, 10 months later. Are you still feeling so optimistic about finding those ways?
I still find my motivation on working together and finding a way to do that. I think the fact that the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was bipartisan with 19 senators, Republican senators, and more than a dozen in the House, it gives us all motivation to continue working toward that goal. Look, I think the Republican Party right now is struggling on how to govern and how to lead in a post-Trump era. Unfortunately, they have not joined us in talking about, real solutions for how we put COVID behind us, how we put people back to work, how we recover our economy. And so I think that's going to be central to, voters' decision-making when they go to the ballot box next year.
One last thing I want to slide in here quickly because our time is almost up.
Yeah.
You're a co-chair of the Pandemic Preparedness Caucus.
Yes.
It's trying to fix what's broken in our pandemic response before the next one hits us.
That's right.
You're looking at issues which would seem like no-brainers, like creating a tracking system for the supply chain for medical equipment. Is there sufficient urgency elsewhere in Washington, in the White House, in the Congress, to do this kind of work?
Absolutely. I will say that this is one of those areas where I have been able to work with Republicans on pandemic preparedness. And frankly, the president has led the way on this. I mean, the fact that we're talking about our supply chain and strengthening it, bringing it back to the United States is a direct result of what we saw last March at the beginning of the pandemic. But look, we've got workforce shortages. I mean, we just marked up a bill in the Energy and Commerce Committee so that we can have loan forgiveness programs so that we can attract more medical professionals in infectious disease so that we are prepared for the next pandemic. But certainly, whether we're talking about our supply chain, our workforce issues, our visibility into the supply chain so that states and municipalities can plan on when they're going to get those vaccines or PPE, all of that is important for us, bringing out the lessons very quickly on what we learned here and making sure that we're never caught flat-footed again.
Yeah.